Hey everybody, hope you all are doing well and welcome back to Whiskey Wonders International this time around because we are in probably one of my, maybe the second most favorite duty-frees in the world, which is London Heathrow's duty-free, where they typically have a pretty amazing selection of whiskeys, scotches mostly, and Japanese whiskeys. And this time around, they really, truly do not disappoint because we see a very interesting limited whiskey out of a Wild Turkey, the Kentucky Spirit, as well as a potentially maybe sort of kind of overhyped and overpriced, but in demand and also sort of kind of maybe worth it if you are a lover of true Japanese whiskey and a collector of Suntory, which is kind of a must, the Yamazaki 1800th anniversary. So we're gonna go over those and at least take a look around at what other great whiskeys they had there this time and talk about what we did and didn't decide to get. Now, before we get to it, if you like these videos, if you like the wanders, and if you like the hauls, if you like the reviews, the unbottlings, the unboxings, and really all the amazing stuff that we have cooking up for you, we have a lot, don't forget to like and subscribe because it does really help the channel grow, and of course we are so thankful for that. But also because it means you get notified when our newest long videos come out, when our newest short videos come out, and really everything else we have in between. All right, now, let's get down to the video. All right, so while we're getting the WandaVision warmed up here, and it takes a little bit longer now after Brexit, but yeah, well, let us to ourselves get warmed up and do a real quick whiskey check, get a glass here. And today I am gonna be enjoying, let's do something Japanese. You know what? Let's do a little Yamazaki 12. It's been a little while since I've had this. Let's enjoy a little bit of Yamazaki 12 here. Oh yeah. And of course, there's not gonna be a pop because it is a twist off. So it's eco-friendly, but just not as orally friendly. Let's see if we can get a little bit of juice here. Oh yeah. And to whiskey. Because, let's face it, you can never really drink too much of it. You can only just drink it too fast. Cheers. Ooh. Delicious every time. So good. All right, so first up is a whiskey that actually we saw previously at Costco. And I had bemoaned not picking it up at that time, which is going to be this Wild Turkey Kentucky Spirit single barrel. But one big difference here in the international market, and kind of oddly sized, is the size. Because this one that we see here at London Heathrow is 100 centiliters, or as us Americans would say, 1 liter. Which seems a bit unusual for a hand-selected single barrel whiskey. I mean, it does feel a bit kind of supersized, which I would say is very American, considering normally even here in the US we see them at 750 milliliters, and in the Shenzhen zone it's usually 700 milliliters. So 1 liter is a bit of an oddity, but who's going to complain about that? Now, this Wild Turkey Kentucky Spirit, I guess, is going to be a travel size, right? The only time I've seen it is in the travel size. And realistically, the Wild Turkey, like pretty much all the other big whiskey makers in the United States, realize that the market for whiskey is moving away from quantity, and those bourbon dollars as a whole are really migrating towards quality. So we see things like these single barrels, these sort of artisanal whiskeys being made and getting much more prominence on the shelves and in the duty frees in this case, which I guess is always the case, right? They always put the high dollar, low production kind of specialty travel items for whiskey at the duty frees because it is basically the breeding ground for whiskey consumers who disregard price sometimes at their own peril. I blame the jet lag. Now this one specifically we see here was dumped on 6/3/2022, so it's been around quite some time. And like all Wild Turkeys in this kind of category, it still has the same standard mash bill, 75% corn, 13% rye, and 12% malted barley as the whiskey that you would find in the Wild Turkey 101 in, the big plastic bottle by the gallon or whatever size they sell it by. Now, as well as I recall, as we were traveling down last time through Central California, where we saw at a Costco, Kentucky Spirit is a version of a single barrel bourbon that was the second one to ever come to the mass market, of course, after Blanton's back in 1994. So it is, in fact, one of the OG single barrel bourbons, not these Johnny-come-latelys trying to come out with single barrels and high proof ones as of late. So it has been around quite some time. Now, the price that we see it here at the duty free in London Heathrow is at 59.99 pounds, 59 pounds and 99 cents. I don't know what they call that. Either way, it comes out to $75.59 at today's exchange rate. But if we compare that to what we saw at the Costco price, which we saw at $52.99, here, you know, it is a bit more expensive. Total Wine has it for $60.99, and Bevmo has it for $74.99. So that means that if we did pick this one up at London Heathrow, which was on our way into Europe, which means we'd have to basically lug it around for the remainder of the trip, which, you know, needless to say is less than ideal, we would have paid $22.60 in USD more than the Costco price, or about 29.9%. But we would be getting an additional 250 milliliters because of that size, the 1 liter size. So I don't know, I'll leave that up to you to decipher if it was worth an extra 30% or so as far as the juice goes. But, you know, for me, it just wasn't going to work out. Now, the ABV on this Kentucky Spirits is at 101 proof, surprise, surprise, 50.5%. And the tasting notes do mention that it is noticeably complex, that it has a really strong classic bourbon profile, things like leather and pecan and caramel, and a pervasive rye spice, which that does sound pretty good. But again, it's not having to check it into your carry bag and wait for it after customs to come out. Good. One other thing is for certain is that if we did have seen this one at home, especially at the 1 liter size, I think this one definitely would have been a buy. The review scores I could find on it were 89 points out of 100, which definitely warrants a buy and a try. But really, it was just, again, more of a logistical issue with this one, so that's why it was a pass. You know, you will see in some of these other duty-frees that we have coming up, there were some bottles that eventually came up that were too good to pass. But we'll save that one for future duty-free. So this one was a pass, but if we catch it back here stateside, might have to pick it up. Now, next up is a whiskey that I'm not really sure how to put this, but there is a lot of love and a lot of hate for, and the prices for it are wild and woolly and mercurial at best, just quite literally all over the place. But we see it here on our way into Europe at London Heathrow, which is going to be the Yamazaki 18, which itself is correctly quite prized, but this version is the 100th anniversary special edition, which makes it all the more rare, but all the more expensive in general. Now, the reason for these 100th anniversary Yamazakis are pretty self-evident because the distiller, Suntory, was celebrating its 100th birthday. So it turned 100 years old. So they decided to make a special edition in honor of the longevity, and they made a version that is the Yamazaki 18. They made a Hakushu 18, they made a Yamazaki 12, and a Hakushu 12. You can actually see all of those here in the footage for it, and they're all special editions for the 100th anniversary. Now, the Yamazaki and the Hakushu 12, well, aside from the badging on the box, which you can see here as well on the 18, and also a decoder ring, a secret decoder ring on the inside, the Yamazaki and the Hakushu 12, they don't really have anything different about the actual whiskey itself. But that is not the case for the Yamazaki 18, which does actually have a difference in its DNA. But in this case, for the Yamazaki 18-year-old version, because they have a bit higher ABV, which is very verifiable, they are also made from very specific barrels that were handpicked just for this instance, which is considerably less verifiable. So the DNA is going to be different on these. And I guess it brings in the question, what is a few more ABV points or moreover, a bit of a strange version of whiskey that has a reputation for being delicious, for being consistently good over years, and is, something to be loved. But what is the value of that? And what is that worth to the average, normal, kind of run-of-the-mill Suntory lover? So speaking of the price that we see here at the duty free, it is £1,199.99. And that comes out to $1,511.99 in the United States, which is about how much we got this one for, and is also about double or maybe even triple what you're going to buy it for at the standard Yamazaki without the little 100-year anniversary badge or without the extra ABV points on there. Speaking of ABV, the ABV on the Yamazaki 18 100th anniversary, like I said, is a bit higher than the standard 43%. This one is at 48%, which you all can see right there, or 96 proof. And although, it's only a couple points, it really is not a lot of points. It may not seem like a big deal. It does kind of answer the question that I had an opportunity to ask one of the Suntory reps who was amazingly knowledgeable about the brand at the Paris Whiskey Live Suntory booth, when I had asked her what did I think her ceiling for the ABV on the Yamazaki 18 would be if they could raise it. Now, undoubtedly, she dodged this question masterfully, but it does kind of give us an answer, because I'm guessing that 48% is about as high as they could go and still maintain the palate, the familiarity of that Yamazaki 18 and not start destroying some of the more nuanced flavors that are in there. Anything above that would basically, it would basically destroy that and also turn it into a whiskey that is something different. It wouldn't be Yamazaki 18 as we know it. In fact, maybe it could be like a Yamazaki 18 XL, right? Or a Yamazaki 18 Max. Or, ooh, you know what it could do? Yamazaki 18 straight from the barrel. That, my friends, would be fantastic. Now, since last time we had talked about the Yamazaki 18 100th anniversary when we first got it, it seems like there has been some folks who have now finally tried it and moreover made some reviews over it, because like me, most people are actually just collecting, but these folks were brave enough to try it and to cut into their whiskey collection. That being said, on the whiskey tasting notes, they mentioned that there is a mid-range thickness to it, as well as the flavors of black tea, molasses, clove, anise, sandalwood, and a hint of soda or pop, as our Midwestern friends call it. And interestingly enough, despite the higher ABV, nobody in the reviews of the flavor actually mentioned the ABV as a key point of the palate, which means, at least to me, maybe they could go a little bit higher. Now, the review scores on this with the new edition from the new averages bring the total average score that I could find put together, culminated to 93 points out of 100, which is a few points higher than the standard Yamazaki 18. So again, that brings us circling back to the question of at double or maybe even triple the price, is it worth a few higher ABV points and a higher overall score? Now, obviously, this is just the opinion of one humble whiskey drinker, but I think that it is sort of like miles per hour and sports cars. So bear with me on this one. If you want a car that can go 100 miles per hour, you could probably get even the humblest of Priuses to do that, at least if you get it going downhill and a good tailwind. If you want a car that goes 200 miles an hour on those long straightaways to Las Vegas, maybe you'll spend, about $100,000. If you want a car that can go $220,000, then you're going to pay, $300,000 for a Lamborghini or the like. But if you want to go 300 miles per hour, just a little bit more faster, then you're going to be paying $2-3 million for something like a Bugatti. My point being is that each additional mile of hour has an exponentially higher cost. And I think the same is with whiskey. For each point that a whiskey gets better, it may add 10, 20, 50, maybe even 100%, in this case 300% more in cost to get there. But if you have a palate that is good enough to appreciate those differences, I think then probably, yeah, it's going to be worth it. But if you don't, then in that case, maybe it's better to save it until you can get your palate worked up there. And that, my friends, is why mine is still unopened. All right, so that's it for today's Whiskey Wonders at the London Heathrow Duty Free Part 1, because we do come back through on our way out of Europe, and boy, do things get out of control, at least as far as the whiskey budget goes on our way out. So we'll save that for part 2 and even a part 3 because there was just so much great whiskey at London Heathrow, primarily Japanese whiskey. And if you like Japanese whiskey, man, you're gonna like you're gonna like these next ones. That being said, if you do like these videos, if you like the wanders, if you like the hauls, if you like the reviews, the unbottlings, the unboxings, really all the amazing stuff that we have cooking up for you, don't forget to like and subscribe because it does really help the channel grow. And of course, we are so thankful for that. But also because it means you get updates when our long videos come out like this one, when our short videos come out, and really everything in between. Now, before we go, just remember, if you do find a whiskey that you love, just buy it. Because if you don't, somebody else surely will. And in this case, well, maybe not this case. It might even be me. Anyway, hope everybody has a great rest of your week. I'm out, and adios.